Emma Carter never imagined that one accidental collision on a rain-soaked street would shatter the invisible walls around her life. She was nobody, a shadow in scrubs, working herself to the bone just to survive. But when she looked up into the eyes of Adrian Varelli, everything changed. He was dangerous, powerful, the kind of man who could destroy her with a single word. Yet he saw her, and in that moment, her carefully hidden world began to unravel. If you want to know how far an invisible girl can fall and rise, stay until the end. Hit that like button and comment your city, so I can see how far Emma's story reaches across the world. The fluorescent lights of St. Michael's Hospital emergency wing buzzed like angry hornets at 4 in the morning. Emma Carter scrubbed at a particularly stubborn bloodstain on the linoleum floor, her knees aching against the cold tile, her shoulders burning with exhaustion. Somewhere down the hall, a patient screamed. An alarm beeped insistently. A doctor barked orders that nobody seemed to follow. Emma kept scrubbing. This was her life. Had been for 3 years now. Night shift after night shift, cleaning up the mess that came through those sliding glass doors. The overdoses, the gunshot wounds, the car accidents, the desperate and the dying. She was 24 years old and felt ancient. "Emma!" Nurse Patricia's sharp voice cut through the chaos. "Room 7 needs fresh linens. Move it." Emma didn't bother responding. She just pushed herself to her feet, dumped the bloody water down the drain, and headed for the supply closet. Her reflection caught in the small mirror by the break room. Dark circles under her eyes, brown hair pulled back in a messy bun, scrubs hanging loose on her too-thin frame. When had she last eaten a real meal? Yesterday? The day before? She couldn't remember. The supply closet smelled like bleach and institutional despair. Emma grabbed an armful of linens and made her way to room 7, where an elderly man lay unconscious, tubes running from his arms like vines. She changed the sheets with practiced efficiency, careful not to disturb him, then slipped out without a word. Nobody noticed her. They never did. By 6 a.m., Emma's shift was finally over. She clocked out, grabbed her worn coat from her locker, and stepped into the gray dawn of a city that never truly slept. The air was cold, threatening rain, and she pulled her coat tighter as she began the 6-block walk to her apartment. She couldn't afford a car, could barely afford the apartment, a cramped studio in a building where the heat worked sporadically and the neighbors fought loud enough to rattle the walls. But it was hers, or at least it would be until next month's rent came due. Emma's thoughts were foggy with exhaustion as she navigated the cracked sidewalks. Her feet hurt. Everything hurt. All she wanted was to collapse into bed and sleep until her next shift started at 8 p.m., 14 hours. She had 14 hours to rest, eat something, maybe do laundry if she could find the energy. She turned the corner onto 5th Street, head down, mind elsewhere, and collided hard with something solid. The impact sent her stumbling backward. Her bag slipped from her shoulder, spilling its contents across the wet pavement. Wallet, keys, a half-eaten granola bar, the romance novel she'd been reading in stolen moments between cleaning rooms. "Damn it," Emma muttered, dropping to her knees to gather everything up. "My apologies." The voice was deep, smooth, with an edge of controlled power that made Emma's hands freeze on her scattered belongings. Slowly, she looked up. The man standing before her was striking. That was the only word for it. Tall, easily over 6 feet, with dark hair that fell just slightly across his forehead, sharp cheekbones, and eyes so intensely gray they seemed to reflect the steel of the overcast sky. He wore an immaculate black suit that probably cost more than Emma made in 6 months, and he was looking down at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Not pity, not annoyance, something else, something that made her skin prickle with awareness. "I wasn't watching where I was going," Emma said quickly, shoving her things back into her bag. "My fault." "You look exhausted." The observation was so direct, so matter-of-fact that Emma didn't know how to respond. She managed a tired laugh. 12-hour shift, yeah. She grabbed her book, but before she could stuff it into her bag, the man's hand reached down and plucked it from her fingers. Emma's breath caught as he examined the cover, some ridiculous romance with a shirtless man and a swooning woman. "Escape reading?" he asked. Emma felt heat rise to her cheeks. Something like that. He handed the book back, and for just a moment their fingers touched. The contact sent an unexpected jolt through Emma's tired body, a spark of something she was too exhausted to name. "You work at the hospital," he said. Not a question, a statement. Emma finally managed to get to her feet, hugging her bag to her chest like a shield. "I'm a nurse assistant, night shift." That explains the exhaustion. His eyes swept over her face with an intensity that made Emma want to look away. But she didn't. Couldn't. There was something magnetic about this man, something dangerous and compelling all at once. "I should go," Emma said, though she made no move to leave. "I need to get home before I fall asleep standing up." "When do you work again?" The question caught her off guard. "Tonight, 8 to 6. He nodded slowly, as if filing that information away. "You live nearby?" Emma's survival instincts finally kicked in. She didn't know this man, didn't know why he was asking questions or why he seemed so interested in her unremarkable life. "I should really go." "Wait." He reached into his jacket and Emma tensed, but he only pulled out a business card. Simple, elegant, just a name and a phone number. "Adrian Varelli, if you need anything." Emma took the card with trembling fingers. "Why would I need anything from you?" Adrian's lips curved into something that might have been a smile. "You look like someone who carries the weight of the world on her shoulders." I recognized that look. He stepped closer, and Emma's heart began to pound. Sometimes we all need someone to see us. Really see us. Emma opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. This man, Adrian, was looking at her like she mattered, like she was worth noticing. It had been so long since anyone had looked at her that way. So long since she'd felt like anything other than a ghost moving through the world. "I don't even know you," she whispered. "No," Adrian agreed. "But perhaps you should." Then he did something that made Emma's breath stop entirely. He reached out and gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers warm against her cold skin. "Go home, Emma Carter. Get some rest. But keep the card." He turned and walked away, leaving Emma standing on the sidewalk with her heart racing and a business card clutched in her hand. She watched him climb into a sleek black car that screamed money and power, watched it pull away into traffic and disappear. Only then did she realize she'd never told him her name. Emma's apartment was exactly as depressing as she'd left it, small, cold, with a window that looked out onto a brick wall. She dropped her bag by the door, kicked off her shoes, and collapsed onto her narrow bed without bothering to change out of her scrubs. The business card was still in her hand. Adrian Varelli. She turned it over, studying the elegant lettering. No company name, no title. Just a name and a number. Who was he? Why had he stopped to talk to her? Men like that, wealthy, powerful, devastatingly handsome, didn't notice women like Emma. They looked right through her, just like everyone else. But Adrian had seen her. Emma's phone buzzed. A text from her roommate, Jenna, or rather, her former roommate, who'd moved out 2 months ago when she couldn't handle the neighborhood anymore. "Hey, Em. Landlord called me asking about next month's rent. You good?" Emma closed her eyes. No, she wasn't good. She was exactly $400 short on rent, and her paycheck wouldn't cover it. She'd been picking up extra shifts, but it wasn't enough. It was never enough. "I'll figure it out," Emma typed back. "Don't worry." She set the phone aside and stared at the ceiling, where a water stain had spread into the shape of something vaguely ominous. Her life was a series of barely managed catastrophes. Work until exhaustion, sleep, wake up, work again. Try not to think about the fact that she had no savings, no family to fall back on, no safety net of any kind. Her mother had died when Emma was 19. Cancer, long and brutal. Emma had dropped out of nursing school to care for her, and by the time it was over, there was nothing left. No money, no energy to go back to school, no path forward except the one that led her here. Tonight shifts and blood-stained floors and an apartment she could barely afford. She was so tired. Emma's eyes drifted back to the business card on her nightstand. If you need anything, what could a man like Adrian Varelli possibly offer her? What did he want in return? Nothing was free. Emma had learned that lesson hard and early. Men with power and money didn't help people out of kindness. They expected something back. But the way he'd looked at her, Emma shook her head, trying to clear the dangerous thoughts forming there. She needed sleep, not fantasy. Tomorrow, or tonight rather, she'd be back at the hospital, invisible again. This morning's encounter would fade into just another strange moment in a strange city. She slipped the card into her nightstand drawer and closed her eyes. But sleep wouldn't come. Emma tossed and turned, her mind refusing to quiet. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Adrian's face, felt the warmth of his fingers against her skin, heard his voice saying her name like it mattered. Finally, at 3 in the afternoon, she gave up and dragged herself out of bed. 7 hours until her shift. She should eat something, should do laundry, should figure out how to come up with $400 in the next 2 weeks. Instead, she found herself pulling out the business card again. Adrian Varelli. Before she could talk herself out of it, Emma grabbed her phone and typed the number into her contacts. She didn't call, didn't text, just saved it there. A small rebellion against the voice in her head that said men like him didn't waste time on women like her. Her phone rang, startling her so badly she nearly dropped it. Unknown number. Hello? Emma Carter? The voice was professional, female, slightly cold. Yes? This is Meridian Financial Services. We're calling regarding your outstanding medical debt from St. Michael's Hospital. You're currently 3 months behind on payments totaling $6,412. We need to discuss a payment plan immediately. Emma's stomach dropped. Her mother's medical bills. The debt collectors had been calling for months, and Emma had been dodging them, making tiny payments when she could, always falling further behind. I'm working on it, Emma said, hating how weak her voice sounded. I just need more time. Ms. Carter, we've been very patient, but without a concrete payment plan in place by the end of this week, we'll have no choice but to pursue legal action. Legal action? Emma's hand started shaking. What does that mean? Wage garnishment. Liens against any assets. It's in your best interest to work with us voluntarily. Emma closed her eyes. Assets. She almost laughed. What assets? A 10-year-old laptop? A wardrobe consisting entirely of scrubs and 2 pairs of jeans? I'll call you back, Emma managed. I'll call you back. She hung up before the woman could respond, then sat on the edge of her bed trying to breathe through the panic rising in her chest. $6,000, $400 for rent. Her car insurance was due next week. She'd been eating ramen and peanut butter sandwiches for the last month just to keep the lights on. There was no way out. Emma looked at her phone, at Adrian's number sitting there in her contacts like a lifeline she was too proud to grab. If you need anything. No, she couldn't. Whatever Adrian Varelli wanted, whatever game he was playing, Emma couldn't afford to play it. She'd survived this the same way she'd survived everything else. By working harder, sleeping less, existing in the margins until something finally gave. She just hoped it wouldn't be her. Mamset. The hospital was chaos when Emma arrived for her shift that night. A multi-car pileup on the interstate had filled every trauma bay, and the staff was running on fumes and caffeine. Emma threw herself into the work, grateful for the distraction. Cleaning, restocking, running supplies, fetching whatever the nurses and doctors needed. Being invisible had its uses. She could move through the chaos without anyone asking questions, without anyone expecting her to be anything more than a pair of hands. Emma! Patricia again, looking frazzled. We need more IV bags in Trauma 2, and someone needs to clean up the blood in the hallway before someone slips and we get sued. Emma nodded and went to work. Hours blurred together. At some point, someone shoved a protein bar into her hands and told her to eat. She did mechanically, then went back to the endless tasks. By 3 a.m., the chaos had finally subsided into the normal hospital rhythms of beeping machines and hushed conversations. Emma was in the supply closet counting inventory when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Her heart jumped into her throat. The debt collectors again? But when she opened the message, it was just 2 words. Still awake? Emma stared at the screen. There was no name attached to the number, but somehow she knew. Adrian. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She should ignore it, delete it, block the number, and forget this morning had ever happened. Instead, she typed, "Working. You?" The response came immediately. "Thinking about you." Emma's breath caught. This was dangerous. This was exactly the kind of thing that led to mistakes she couldn't afford. She started to put the phone away, but another message came through. Have dinner with me tomorrow, after your shift. Emma's hands were shaking again, but this time it wasn't from panic. It was from something else entirely, something that felt like possibility. I don't even know you, she typed back. Then let me fix that. 6:30 tomorrow morning. I'll pick you up from the hospital. This was insane. Emma didn't go to dinner with strangers. Didn't let wealthy, powerful men pick her up in expensive cars. Didn't step outside the carefully controlled boundaries of her survival-focused life. But when had playing it safe ever gotten her anywhere? Before she could talk herself out of it, Emma typed, "Okay." Then she shoved her phone in her pocket and went back to work, trying to ignore the way her heart was racing. The next morning, Emma found herself standing outside the hospital entrance at 6:20, feeling ridiculous. She was still in her scrubs, still smelled faintly of antiseptic, still had her hair in a messy bun. This wasn't dinner attire. This wasn't date attire. This was exhausted nurse assistant who should be going home attire. She was about to pull out her phone and cancel when the black car pulled up. Adrian stepped out looking impossibly put together in dark slacks and a charcoal sweater that probably cost more than Emma's monthly rent. He smiled when he saw her, a real smile that transformed his face from intimidating to breathtaking. "You came," he said. "I said I would." Emma shifted her weight, suddenly aware of how bedraggled she must look compared to him. "I should probably warn you, I'm not exactly dinner ready." Adrian's eyes swept over her, and there was something in his gaze that made Emma's skin warm. "You look perfect." "I look like I just worked a 12-hour shift in a hospital." "Exactly." He opened the car door for her. "Perfect." Emma hesitated for just a moment longer, then climbed into the car. The interior was leather and luxury, so far removed from her world that it felt like stepping into a different dimension. Adrian slid in beside her, and the driver pulled away from the curb without a word. "Where are we going?" Emma asked. "Somewhere quiet, where we can talk." Emma's survival instincts flared again. "I don't know you. For all I know, you could be a serial killer." Adrian laughed, a rich, genuine sound that seemed to surprise even him. "Fair point. What do you want to know?" "Everything, starting with how you knew my name yesterday." Adrian reached into his jacket and pulled out a hospital ID badge. Emma's ID badge. The one she'd lost weeks ago and had been meaning to replace. "You dropped it," Adrian said simply. "The first time I saw you. 3 weeks ago, in the hospital parking lot. You were getting into an old Honda with a flat tire, looking like the world had beaten you down. I picked up your badge, but by the time I reached your car, you'd already driven away." Emma's mind was reeling. "You've been carrying my ID for 3 weeks?" "I tried to return it, went to the hospital, asked for you, but they wouldn't give me information about employees." His eyes met hers, intense and unwavering. "So I waited. Came by a few times, hoping to see you. Yesterday morning was the first time our paths crossed again." "That's—" Emma didn't know how to finish that sentence. Romantic? Creepy? Somewhere in between? "I know how it sounds," Adrian said quietly, "but I couldn't stop thinking about you. The way you looked that day, exhausted, determined, fighting so hard just to keep going. I recognize that look because I've worn it myself." "You?" Emma gestured at his expensive clothes, his luxury car. "Somehow, I doubt you know what it's like to struggle." Adrian's expression hardened slightly. "Everyone has their struggles, Emma. Mine just come with a different price tag." The car pulled up in front of a restaurant Emma had never seen before. Small, elegant, tucked away on a quiet street. Adrian helped her out, his hand warm and steady on her arm, and led her inside. The interior was dimly lit, intimate, with only a handful of tables. A server appeared immediately, greeting Adrian by name and leading them to a private booth in the back. Emma felt completely out of place in her scrubs, but Adrian seemed oblivious to the stares they were drawing. "I can't afford this," Emma blurted out as soon as they sat down. "You're not paying. I can't let you—" "Emma." Adrian reached across the table and took her hand. The contact sent electricity through her tired body. "Stop thinking about cost. Stop thinking about debt and bills and survival. Just for one meal, let yourself exist without calculating the price of everything." Emma's throat tightened. When was the last time anyone had told her to stop worrying? Stop fighting? When was the last time she'd felt like she could? "I don't know how to do that," she whispered. Then let me show you. The meal passed in a blur of conversation and connection Emma hadn't expected. Adrian ordered for both of them. Nothing pretentious, just good food that Emma attacked with the hunger of someone who'd been living on granola bars and coffee. They talked. Really talked. Adrian asked questions about her life, her work, her dreams that had died when her mother got sick. Emma found herself opening up in ways she hadn't in years, telling him about the exhaustion, the debt, the feeling of treading water while the current pulled her under. And Adrian listened. Not with pity, but with understanding that felt genuine. What about you? Emma asked finally, wiping her mouth with a napkin. You know everything about my tragic life? Tell me about yours. Adrian's expression shifted, closing off slightly, becoming guarded. My life is complicated. That's not an answer. No, he agreed. It's not. He leaned back, studying her with those intense gray eyes. I run a business. Import-export. It's demanding, sometimes dangerous, and it's made me wealthy, but not particularly happy. Import-export of what? Adrian's lips curved into a slight smile. Various things. Nothing you need to worry about. Emma should have pressed, should have demanded real answers. But the food and the warmth and the way Adrian was looking at her had lowered her defenses. Why me? She asked instead. You could have anyone. Why chase down an exhausted nurse assistant who can barely keep her life together? Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached across the table and took her hand again, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. Because when I looked at you, I saw someone real. Someone who hadn't been corrupted by money or power or easy living. Someone who fights every day just to survive and somehow hasn't let it make her bitter. His grip tightened slightly. You have no idea how rare that is. Emma's heart was pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. Adrian, come with me, he said suddenly. After this, come somewhere we can really talk, somewhere private. Every alarm bell in Emma's head started ringing. This was it, the moment where the fantasy turned into something dangerous, where the handsome stranger revealed his true intentions. But when she looked into Adrian's eyes, she didn't see predation. She saw loneliness. A different kind than hers, but just as deep. Where? She asked. My apartment. It's not far. I promise you'll be safe. Emma should have said no, should have thanked him for dinner and gone home to her depressing studio and her mounting debt. Should have protected herself. Instead, she said, okay. Adrian's apartment was a penthouse overlooking the city, all floor-to-ceiling windows and modern minimalism. Emma stood in the entrance, suddenly feeling more out of place than ever. You live here alone? She asked. Yes. It's... She couldn't find the words. Beautiful, lonely, both at once. Adrian moved to the windows, looking out at the city lights. I bought it because I thought it would make me feel powerful, successful. Turns out it just makes me feel isolated. Emma joined him at the window, their reflections ghost-like in the glass. Below them, the city sprawled endlessly, millions of people living millions of lives, most of them just as desperate as hers. Why am I really here, Adrian? Emma asked quietly. He turned to face her, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. Because I wanted you here. Because for the first time in years, I met someone who made me feel something other than empty. You don't know me. Then let me. Emma's breath caught as Adrian reached up and gently pulled the tie from her hair, letting it fall loose around her shoulders. His fingers tangled in the strands, and Emma felt her resolve crumbling. This is crazy, she whispered. Yes. Adrian's face moved closer to hers. Does that mean you want to stop? Emma knew she should. Knew this was dangerous and reckless, and exactly the kind of mistake that ruined lives. But she was so tired of being careful, so tired of surviving instead of living. No, she breathed. Adrian's kiss was gentle at first, questioning, giving her space to pull away. But Emma didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned in, her hands fisting in his sweater, pulling him closer. The kiss deepened, became desperate, and Emma felt something inside her break open, all the loneliness and exhaustion and need she'd been holding back for so long. Adrian lifted her into his arms like she weighed nothing, carrying her away from the windows, away from the city below. Emma should have been afraid, should have been calculating the cost of this mistake. Instead, she felt alive for the first time in years. Emma's story has only just begun. The collision on that rain-soaked street set forces in motion that neither she nor Adrian could have predicted. In the morning, everything would change, but for now, in the darkness of Adrian's penthouse, Emma Carter finally felt seen. And in a world that had taught her to be invisible, that was worth any price. Emma woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, momentarily disoriented by the unfamiliar softness beneath her. The sheets were Egyptian cotton, the mattress far more luxurious than anything she'd ever slept on. For a few blissful seconds, she forgot where she was. Then memory crashed back. Adrian, the penthouse, everything that had happened in the darkness. Emma sat up quickly, clutching the sheet to her chest. The bedroom was empty, the space beside her cold. Panic fluttered in her chest as she looked around the enormous room. Minimalist furniture, abstract art on the walls. A view of the city that made her feel like she was floating above the world. What had she done? She'd slept with a man she barely knew, a wealthy, powerful stranger who'd bought her dinner and carried her to bed like something out of one of her ridiculous romance novels. Emma pressed her hands to her face, mortification washing over her. This wasn't who she was. She didn't do things like this. Except she had. The bedroom door opened and Adrian appeared carrying a tray. He was dressed in gray sweatpants and a white t-shirt, his hair slightly mussed, looking somehow even more devastating in casual clothes than he had in his expensive suit. "You're awake," he said, a smile touching his lips. "I was hoping you'd sleep longer. You needed it." Emma became acutely aware that she was naked beneath the sheet. "What time is it?" "Almost noon." Adrian set the tray on the bed, coffee, fresh fruit, pastries that looked like they'd come from some exclusive bakery. "I took the liberty of ordering breakfast. Or lunch, I suppose." "I should go." Emma started to get up, then remembered she was naked and froze. "I need to... My shift starts in 8 hours, and I should... Emma!" Adrian sat on the edge of the bed, close enough to touch but not touching. "Breathe, there's no rush." But there was. There had to be. Because if Emma stayed here, in this beautiful penthouse with this beautiful man, she might start believing that last night meant something, that this was more than a one-time mistake. "Where are my clothes?" she asked, her voice tight. Adrian's expression shifted, disappointment flickering across his features before he masked it. "Bathroom. I had them cleaned." Of course he had, because he had people for that. People to clean clothes and deliver gourmet breakfast and manage every aspect of a life that bore no resemblance to Emma's reality. She grabbed the sheet and wrapped it around herself, then hurried to the bathroom. Her scrubs had indeed been cleaned and pressed, folded neatly on the marble counter next to toiletries that probably cost more than her weekly grocery budget. Emma dressed quickly, avoiding her reflection in the mirror. She didn't want to see the woman who'd abandoned all common sense for one night of feeling wanted. When she emerged, Adrian was standing by the windows, coffee cup in hand, looking out at the city. He didn't turn around. "Thank you for breakfast," Emma said awkwardly. "And for last night. It was a mistake?" Adrian's voice was carefully neutral. "No, I didn't mean that." Emma moved closer, though she kept distance between them. "It was wonderful. You were wonderful. But it can't happen again." Now Adrian did turn, his gray eyes pinning her in place. "Why not?" "Because look at this place. Look at you. Look at me." Emma gestured at herself, at her cheap scrubs and worn shoes. "We're from different worlds, Adrian. Last night it was like a fairy tale, but fairy tales aren't real. What if I want it to be real?" Emma's heart stuttered. "You don't know what you want. You don't know me." "Then give me the chance to." Adrian set down his coffee and crossed to her, taking her hands in his. "Stay. Just for today. Let me show you what this could be." Every rational part of Emma's brain screamed at her to refuse, to walk out that door and never look back, to protect herself from the inevitable heartbreak when Adrian got bored with his slumming experiment. But the irrational part, the part that had felt alive in his arms last night, that part whispered, "Why not?" "I have work tonight," Emma said weakly. "I'll have you back in time. I promise." Emma looked into Adrian's eyes and saw something that terrified her. Genuine feeling. He wasn't playing a game, or if he was, he believed in it himself. "Okay," she whispered. "Just for today." Adrian's smile was radiant. Just for today. He pulled her close and kissed her, soft and sweet, and Emma let herself fall into it. Just for today, she would pretend this was her life, that she belonged in penthouses and Egyptian cotton sheets, that a man like Adrian could want a woman like her for more than one night. Just for today, she would let herself believe in fairy tales. Adrian released her and grabbed his phone. "First, we need to get you out of those scrubs. No offense, but if we're spending the day together, I'd like to see you in something that isn't work-related." Emma looked down at herself. "I don't exactly have a wardrobe with me." "I know." Adrian was already typing something. "Give me your sizes." "Adrian, no. I'm not letting you buy me clothes." He looked up, one eyebrow raised. "Would you prefer to spend the day in scrubs? Because I'm fine with that, but I thought you might want something more comfortable." Emma bit her lip. Pride warred with practicality. "I can't afford to pay you back." "I'm not asking you to." Adrian stepped closer, his expression serious. "Emma, I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. Let me use some of it to make you happy. Not because you owe me anything, but because I want to." "This is crazy. You said that last night too, right before you kissed me." Emma felt heat rise to her cheeks. "That was different." "Was it?" Adrian's fingers traced along her jaw, tilting her face up to his. "Emma, I'm not trying to buy you. I'm trying to give you one day where you don't have to worry. One day where you can just be. Is that so terrible?" When he put it like that, Emma couldn't find the strength to refuse. She gave him her sizes, feeling simultaneously grateful and guilty. This was a slippery slope. Today it was clothes, tomorrow it would be something else. Before she knew it, she'd be dependent on him, trapped by luxury she couldn't afford to lose. But that was tomorrow's problem. Within an hour, bags began arriving. Not just one outfit, but several. Jeans that actually fit her thin frame, soft sweaters, a dress that made Emma's breath catch when she held it up. Nothing ostentatious, nothing that screamed money, just quality clothes that felt like butter against her skin. Emma changed in the bathroom, emerging in dark jeans and a cream sweater that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Adrian's eyes darkened when he saw her. "Beautiful," he murmured. Emma looked away, uncomfortable with the intensity of his gaze. "It's just clothes." "It's you." Adrian held out his hand. "Come on, I want to show you something." They left the penthouse in Adrian's car, the driver, a silent man named Marcus, navigating through midday traffic with practiced ease. Emma watched the city pass by, feeling like she was seeing it from a different angle. From inside this car, with its tinted windows and leather seats, the streets looked less threatening. The homeless man on the corner, the boarded-up shop, the graffiti on the overpass, all of it seemed distant, like viewing poverty through a telescope. "Where are we going?" Emma asked. Adrian smiled mysteriously. "You'll see." They ended up at the waterfront, where luxury yachts bobbed in their slips, and tourists wandered with expensive cameras. Adrian led Emma to a small Italian restaurant tucked between high-end boutiques. The kind of place with no sign, no menu in the window, nothing to indicate it existed at all. Inside, the owner greeted Adrian like family, kissing both his cheeks and launching into rapid Italian that Emma couldn't follow. Adrian responded in kind, his accent perfect, before turning to Emma. "Emma, this is Giovanni. He makes the best pasta in the city." Giovanni beamed at her. "Any friend of Adrian's is family here. Come, come. I have the perfect table." They were led to a corner booth with a view of the water. Wine appeared without being ordered, along with bread that was still warm from the oven. Emma felt like she'd stepped into a movie, the kind where the heroine gets swept off her feet by a mysterious stranger and forgets about real life for a while. "You speak Italian," Emma said as Adrian poured wine into her glass. "I speak several languages. Useful for business. The mysterious import-export business you won't tell me about." Adrian's expression flickered. "It's better if you don't know the details." "That's not ominous at all." "Emma, I'm kidding." She took a sip of wine, letting the rich flavor roll over her tongue. "I don't need to know your life story, Adrian. This is just for today, remember? But even as she said it, something painful twisted in her chest. Just for today. Tomorrow she'd go back to her real life, and this would become a memory she'd pull out on particularly hard nights. The day she pretended to be someone else. Adrian reached across the table and took her hand. What if I don't want it to be just for today? Emma's heart clenched. Adrian, I know this is fast, I know it's crazy, but I haven't felt this way about anyone in years, maybe ever. His thumb traced circles on her palm, sending shivers up her arm. Tell me you don't feel it too. Emma wanted to lie, wanted to protect herself by denying the connection between them, but she'd never been good at lying. I feel it, she whispered. But that doesn't mean it's smart. You're you, and I'm me, and those two things don't fit together. Why not? Because Emma gestured helplessly around them. Because this isn't my world. Because in 3 months or 6 months, you'll wake up and realize you don't actually want a struggling nurse assistant with crippling debt and no prospects. You'll want someone who fits into this life. Someone who knows which fork to use and can talk about art and travel and all the things wealthy people talk about. Adrian's grip on her hand tightened. I've spent my entire life surrounded by people who fit into this world. Do you know what they all have in common? They're hollow. They care about status and appearances and maintaining their position. They've never struggled, never fought for anything real. His eyes burned into hers. You're real, Emma. That's what I want. You barely know me. Then let me know you, really know you. Before Emma could respond, Giovanni appeared with plates of pasta that smelled like heaven. The conversation shifted to lighter topics as they ate. Emma's favorite books, Adrian's travels, the ridiculous hospital stories that made Adrian laugh in a way that transformed his whole face. For a few hours, Emma let herself forget about debt and rent and survival. She let herself be just a woman having lunch with a man who looked at her like she hung the moon. After lunch, Adrian took her walking along the waterfront. The spring sun was warm on Emma's face, and for the first time in months, she felt something like peace. Adrian's hand was warm in hers, solid and real, anchoring her to this impossible day. Tell me about your family, Adrian said as they walked. Emma's peace shattered slightly. Not much to tell. My mom died 5 years ago. Cancer. My dad left when I was 6. No siblings. I'm sorry. Emma shrugged, trying for casual and failing. It is what it is. What about you? Adrian's expression went blank, so quickly and completely that Emma knew she'd hit a nerve. Also not much to tell. That's not an answer. No, he agreed. But it's all you're getting. They walked in silence for a moment. Emma wanted to push, but she didn't have the right. This was just for today, after all. Tomorrow they'd go their separate ways, and his secrets would stay his. I was 8 when my parents died, Adrian said suddenly, his voice flat. Car accident. I went to live with my uncle. He was not a good man. Emma's hand tightened on his. Adrian, he ran a business, the kind that operates in shadows, the kind that destroys lives. Adrian stared out at the water, his jaw tight. He raised me to take over, taught me that power is everything, that weakness gets you killed, that the only people you can trust are the ones you control. Emma's stomach dropped. What kind of business? Adrian looked at her then, and Emma saw something dangerous in his eyes, something that should have scared her but somehow didn't. The kind you're better off not knowing about, he said quietly. But I need you to understand something, Emma. I'm not a good man. I've done things that would horrify you, things I can't take back. His hand cupped her face, gentle, despite the darkness in his voice. But when I'm with you, I want to be better. You make me want to be someone worthy of that look in your eyes. Emma should have run, should have thanked him for the lovely day and gotten as far away as possible from whatever darkness he was involved in. But instead, she leaned into his touch. I'm not asking you to be good, she whispered. I'm just asking you to be honest. Then honestly, Emma Carter, I'm falling for you, and it terrifies me. Emma's breath caught. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be real. Men like Adrian didn't fall for women like her. This was temporary insanity brought on by proximity and good sex, and whatever midlife crisis drove wealthy criminals to slum it with poor girls. But the look in his eyes wasn't insane. It was raw, real, terrifyingly sincere. I have to work tonight, Emma said, because it was the only thing she could think to say. Adrian smiled slightly. I know, but we still have a few hours. They went back to the penthouse as the sun began to set, painting the city in shades of gold and amber. Emma stood at the windows while Adrian poured wine, watching the lights begin to flicker on across the urban landscape. Somewhere out there was her apartment, her hospital, her real life, but it felt very far away. What are you thinking? Adrian asked, handing her a glass. Emma took a sip, buying time. That this doesn't feel real, that tomorrow I'm going to wake up and realize it was all a dream. It's real. Adrian set down his glass and pulled Emma close, his arms wrapping around her from behind. I'm real. This is real. Emma leaned back against his chest, letting herself take comfort in his warmth. What happens tomorrow, Adrian? After my shift, when reality comes back? I'll be here, waiting. For how long? She felt Adrian's chest rise and fall against her back. As long as you'll let me. Emma turned in his arms, looking up at his face. I'm going to disappoint you. I'm not some magical solution to whatever you're running from. I'm just a tired girl with too many problems and not enough money to fix any of them. You're so much more than that. Adrian's fingers tangled in her hair. You're strong. You're brave. You wake up every day and fight a battle most people would have surrendered to years ago. That's not ordinary, Emma. That's extraordinary. Emma's eyes burned with tears she refused to let fall. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? Adrian's lips brushed her forehead. I've spent my life surrounded by people who've never had to fight for anything. Do you know how boring that is? How hollow? His hand cupped her face, tilting it up to his. You make me feel alive, Emma. Like there's something worth fighting for beyond power and money and control. Adrian, Emma's voice broke. Stay tonight. Call in sick. Let me have one more night with you. Emma knew she should say no. She couldn't afford to miss a shift, couldn't afford to fall deeper into whatever this was. But looking into Adrian's eyes, seeing the raw need there that probably matched her own, she found herself nodding. One more night, she whispered. Adrian's kiss was desperate, hungry, as if he was trying to memorize the taste of her. Emma kissed him back with equal fervor, pouring all the fear and longing and impossible hope into it. They made their way to the bedroom, shedding clothes like they were shedding their defenses, and Emma let herself drown in sensation. Later, as they lay tangled together in the darkness, Adrian's fingers traced patterns on her bare shoulder. I want to help you, he said quietly. Emma stiffened. What? Your debt, your rent, all of it. I can make it go away, Emma. No. Emma sat up, pulling the sheet around her. Absolutely not. Why not? Adrian sat up too, his expression confused. I have the money. It means nothing to me but everything to you. Why won't you let me help? Because I'm not a charity case. Because I don't want to owe you. Emma's voice was rising, panic clawing at her chest. Because the second I let you pay my bills, this stops being about us and starts being about money. That's not what this is, isn't it? Emma climbed out of bed, searching for her clothes. Rich man sweeps in to save poor girl. How romantic. Until it isn't, and then I'm just the kept woman who couldn't make it on her own. Adrian's jaw tightened. You're being ridiculous. No, I'm being realistic. Emma pulled on her jeans with shaking hands. This has been wonderful, Adrian. A perfect fantasy. But I can't let it be more than that. I can't let myself depend on you because what happens when you get bored? When you move on to the next project? I'm not going to get bored. You don't know that. Emma found her sweater and yanked it on. People like you always get bored with people like me. Adrian was out of bed now too, advancing on her with barely controlled frustration. People like me? You don't know anything about people like me, Emma. You don't know what I've done, what I'm capable of. Then tell me. Emma stood her ground even though her heart was racing. Tell me about the business you won't explain. Tell me why you live in this fortress. Tell me why you look at me like you're drowning and I'm air. Adrian stopped inches away from her, his chest heaving. For a moment, Emma thought he might actually open up, might actually trust her with whatever darkness he was hiding. Instead, he turned away. Call in sick. Stay. Please. Emma's heart broke a little. I can't. Can't or won't. Does it matter? Adrian's laugh was bitter. No, I suppose it doesn't. Emma gathered the rest of her things, her hands trembling. This was the right choice. The smart choice. She couldn't afford to get deeper into whatever this was with Adrian, couldn't afford to fall for a man whose life was built on secrets and shadows. But walking away felt like tearing off her own skin. "I should go," she said quietly. Adrian didn't turn around. "Marcus will drive you." "Adrian, just go, Emma." The dismissal in his voice cut deeper than Emma expected. She wanted to say something, wanted to fix the sudden chasm between them, but she didn't know how. So she left, walking out of the penthouse with tears streaming down her face. Marcus drove her home in silence. Emma stared out the window, watching her city, her real city, come back into focus. The broken streetlights, the garbage on the sidewalks, the bars on the windows. This was her world. Not penthouses and Italian restaurants and men who looked at her like she was precious. When Marcus pulled up in front of her building, Emma climbed out without a word. She didn't look back. Inside her apartment, the silence was deafening. Emma stripped off the expensive clothes Adrian had bought her and shoved them in the back of her closet, then stood under a hot shower until the water ran cold. She was scrubbing away the scent of him, the memory of his touch, the impossible hope that had bloomed in her chest. By the time she got to the hospital for her shift, Emma had almost convinced herself it had all been a dream, just a brief, beautiful interlude that meant nothing. She was wrong. 3 weeks later, Emma stood in her tiny bathroom, staring at the positive pregnancy test in her shaking hands, and realized that one night had changed absolutely everything. Emma took the test 3 more times, each one confirming what she already knew in her bones. Pregnant. The word kept echoing in her mind like a death sentence as she sat on the edge of her bathtub, surrounded by the evidence of her catastrophic mistake. She couldn't afford this. Couldn't afford a baby. Couldn't afford prenatal care. Couldn't afford to take time off work when her body inevitably forced her to slow down. Emma did the math in her head. The medical bills alone would bury her, never mind diapers and formula and everything else a child needed. And Adrian. She'd have to tell Adrian, except she didn't have his number anymore. In a fit of self-preservation 3 weeks ago, Emma had deleted it from her phone, blocked the contact, erased every trace of him from her digital life. She'd thrown away the business card too, tossed it in the dumpster behind her building like it was evidence of a crime. Emma pressed her hands to her face, trying to breathe through the panic. She had options. She could handle this alone. Women did it every day. Single mothers working multiple jobs, raising children in circumstances far worse than hers. But the thought of bringing a child into her life of chaos and exhaustion made Emma want to scream. Her phone rang, and Emma jumped. The hospital. She was late for her shift. Emma shoved the pregnancy tests into the trash, buried them under tissues and other garbage where she wouldn't have to look at them, then grabbed her bag and ran. The next few weeks passed in a haze of denial and morning sickness. Emma worked her shifts in a fog, fighting nausea and exhaustion while trying to pretend everything was normal. She picked up extra hours when she could, calculating obsessively how much she'd need to save before her body betrayed her, and she couldn't work anymore. The debt collectors kept calling. The landlord sent a notice about late rent. The world kept crushing down on Emma's shoulders, heavier now with the knowledge of what was growing inside her. She didn't tell anyone. Not the other nurses, not her former roommate Jenna, not the free clinic doctor who confirmed the pregnancy and handed Emma a stack of pamphlets about nutrition and prenatal vitamins she couldn't afford. Emma walked through her life like a ghost, invisible again. Except now she carried a secret that made her feel like she was screaming even when she was silent. 2 months in, the morning sickness got so bad that Emma had to run from a patient's room to vomit in the staff bathroom. Patricia found her there, pale and shaking, gripping the toilet bowl. "Emma? You okay?" "Food poisoning," Emma lied, wiping her mouth. "I'm fine." But Patricia's eyes were sharp. She'd been a nurse for 30 years and had seen everything. "How far along are you?" Emma's defenses crumbled. 9 weeks. Patricia helped her to her feet, handed her paper towels, didn't ask questions Emma couldn't answer. "You need to eat something, crackers, ginger ale, and you need to tell the hospital. They'll work with you on accommodations." "I can't afford accommodations. I need the hours." "Emma, I'm fine." "Really?" Emma forced a smile that felt like breaking glass. "I just need to get through this shift." Patricia looked like she wanted to argue, but Emma escaped before she could. She made it through the rest of her shift on sheer stubbornness, then went home and collapsed. The pregnancy progressed relentlessly. Emma's body changed in ways that terrified her, Her scrubs started getting tight, her feet swelled. Her back ached constantly. She cut her hours when she had to, picked up desk work when she could no longer handle the physical demands of patient care. Her paychecks shrank while her expenses grew. At 5 months, Emma finally broke down and applied for assistance. The process was humiliating. Forms asking about the father, about her income, about every failure that had led her to this point. But pride was a luxury she couldn't afford anymore. She moved to an even cheaper apartment in an even worse neighborhood, sold what little she owned, ate rice and beans until she was sick of the sight of them, bought maternity scrubs from a thrift store, and tried not to think about the life she was bringing into this disaster. At night, in the darkness of her tiny bedroom, Emma sometimes let herself think about Adrian, wondered where he was, what he was doing, if he ever thought about her, if he'd care that she was carrying his child. Then she'd remember the look on his face when she'd walked out of his penthouse, the cold dismissal in his voice, and she'd push the thoughts away. Adrian lived in a different world, a world of penthouses and power and secrets Emma couldn't begin to understand. He didn't want her there. He'd made that clear. This baby was her responsibility, hers alone. 7 months into the pregnancy, Emma's water heater broke. She came home from a shift to find her apartment freezing, the landlord unresponsive to her calls. Emma sat on her second-hand couch, wearing every piece of clothing she owned, and finally let herself cry. She was so tired. Tired of fighting, tired of surviving, tired of pretending she could handle this alone. The baby kicked inside her, strong, insistent, real, and Emma put her hand on her swollen belly. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry I can't give you more." The baby kicked again, as if in response. Emma closed her eyes and tried to imagine what came next. Childbirth. Recovery. A newborn who would need constant care. Going back to work when her body was still healing because she couldn't afford not to. Finding childcare she couldn't afford. Raising a daughter, she'd found out it was a girl, in a world that had been nothing but cruel to Emma herself. It felt impossible. But Emma had survived impossible before. At 37 weeks, Emma woke up to cramping pain that stole her breath. She lay in bed, timing the contractions, trying to convince herself it was false labor. She couldn't afford to go to the hospital yet, couldn't afford the ambulance, couldn't afford to miss work if this was nothing. By noon, the pain was unbearable. Emma called for a ride she couldn't afford and made it to St. Michael's emergency entrance, bent double, gasping through contractions that felt like her body was tearing itself apart. The nurses who'd worked beside her for years suddenly saw her, really saw her, and their expressions shifted from casual friendliness to shock and concern. "Emma? Oh my God, why didn't you tell us? How far along are you? Who's the father?" Emma couldn't answer through the pain. They got her into a delivery room, got her into a gown, started an IV. Dr. Morrison, the attending OB, examined her with gentle efficiency. "You're at 7 centimeters. This baby's coming soon." She looked at Emma with concern. "Do you have anyone we can call? Family? The father?" Emma shook her head, gritting her teeth through another contraction. "Just me." The labor was brutal. Hours of pain that blurred together into an endless nightmare. Emma had seen births during her training, had cleaned up after them countless times, but experiencing it herself was different. This was her body breaking open, her daughter forcing her way into a world Emma wasn't ready to bring her into. At some point, things went wrong. Emma heard it in the sudden sharpness of Dr. Morrison's voice, saw it in the way nurses started moving faster. The baby's heart rate was dropping. Emma's blood pressure was spiking. Words like emergency and distress floated through her consciousness. "Emma, we need to do a C-section," Dr. Morrison said. "Right now." Emma tried to respond, but the world was going gray at the edges. She felt hands on her, felt herself being moved, heard urgent voices that seemed to come from very far away. Then nothing. Emma woke to the sound of crying. Not her own, though tears were streaming down her face, but a baby's cry. Thin, reedy, the most beautiful sound Emma had ever heard. "She's here," a nurse said softly. "Your daughter, 7 pounds, 2 ounces, perfect." They placed the baby on Emma's chest, and the world stopped. Emma looked down at the tiny, red-faced creature in her arms, at her daughter, and felt something crack open inside her chest. Love. Pure, terrifying, overwhelming love. "Hi," Emma whispered, her voice breaking. "Hi, baby girl. I'm your mama." The baby's eyes opened, dark and unfocused, and Emma fell completely apart. All the fear and exhaustion and loneliness of the past 9 months shattered against the reality of this tiny person. Her daughter. Her family. The only thing in the world that mattered. "What's her name?" the nurse asked. Emma hadn't let herself think about names, hadn't let herself plan that far ahead, as if naming the baby would make everything too real. But looking at her daughter now, one name rose to her lips. "Lily," Emma said. "Her name is Lily." They took Lily after a few minutes to clean her up, run tests, do all the things hospitals did to newborns. Emma tried to stay awake, tried to fight the exhaustion pulling at her, but her body had other ideas. She woke to chaos. Alarms were screaming. Nurses were running. Emma tried to sit up and gasped at the pain that lanced through her abdomen. The incision. The surgery. She'd forgotten. "What's happening?" Emma's voice came out as a croak. "Where's my baby?" "Emma, lie back down." Patricia was there, her face tight with worry. "You're hemorrhaging. We need to get you to surgery." "My daughter." "She's fine. She's in the nursery. But you're not fine, Emma. Your uterus isn't contracting properly. We need to stop the bleeding." Fear crashed over Emma. "Am I going to die?" Patricia's hesitation was answer enough. They wheeled Emma back to surgery, and she went under thinking about Lily, about her daughter growing up without a mother, just like Emma had, about all the things she'd wanted to tell her, wanted to teach her, wanted to give her, about Adrian, who didn't even know he had a daughter. Emma's last conscious thought was a desperate, silent prayer that someone would find him, tell him, make sure Lily didn't end up alone. The surgery took hours. When Emma finally woke up in recovery, weak and disoriented, Patricia was sitting beside her bed. "You're okay," Patricia said, gripping Emma's hand. "You scared the hell out of us, but you're okay." "Lily?" "Still perfect, still healthy. The nurses are spoiling her rotten in the NICU." Emma closed her eyes, relief washing over her. "I need to see her." "Soon. You need to rest first." But Emma couldn't rest, couldn't relax until she held her daughter again, confirmed with her own eyes that Lily was real and safe. She must have fallen asleep anyway, because when she woke again, Dr. Morrison was standing at the foot of her bed with a strange expression on her face. "Emma, there's someone here to see you." Emma's heart jumped. "Who?" Dr. Morrison stepped aside and Adrian Varelli walked into the room. Emma's world tilted. He looked exactly as she remembered. Sharp suit, dark hair, gray eyes that seemed to see straight through her. But there was something different in his expression, something wild and barely contained. "Adrian," Emma breathed. "How did you—" "You're listed as a single mother with no emergency contacts," Adrian said, his voice tight. "Hospital protocol when there are complications is to try to reach the father if there's any record of paternity." His jaw clenched. "You put my name on the birth certificate." Emma had. In a moment of weakness or clarity, she still wasn't sure which, she'd written Adrian Varelli under father's name. She'd told herself it was just paperwork, that it didn't mean anything. "I didn't think they'd actually find you," Emma said weakly. "They found me." Adrian moved closer to the bed, and Emma could see the tension in every line of his body. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you made it clear you didn't want me in your life. So you decided to carry my child alone, to almost die alone." Adrian's voice rose, anger bleeding through the control. "Do you have any idea what I've been through the last 9 months, trying to find you, searching this entire city for a woman who disappeared like smoke?" Emma stared at him. "You were looking for me?" "From the moment you walked out." Adrian's hands gripped the bed rail so hard his knuckles went white. "I went to the hospital. They said you'd quit. I went to your apartment. You'd moved. I hired investigators, spent thousands of dollars trying to track you down. And all this time you were pregnant with my daughter." Tears spilled down Emma's cheeks. "I thought you didn't want me." "Not want you?" Adrian's laugh was harsh. "Emma, you're all I've wanted for 9 months. You walked away and I've been losing my mind trying to find you." "Then why did you let me go?" "Because you asked me to." Adrian's voice broke on the last word. But because you looked at me like you were terrified of what I might do, and I couldn't stand it. So I let you walk away, and I've regretted it every single day since. Emma couldn't breathe, couldn't process what he was saying. Adrian, where is she? Adrian interrupted. Where's our daughter? Our daughter. The words hit Emma like a physical blow. She'd spent 9 months thinking of Lily as hers alone, her burden to bear. But Lily wasn't just hers, she was theirs. NICU, Emma whispered. They're monitoring her because of the complications. Adrian turned to Dr. Morrison, who'd been watching the exchange with wide eyes. Take me to her, now. It wasn't a request. It was an order, delivered with the kind of authority that made Dr. Morrison nod and lead Adrian out without question. Emma was left alone in her hospital bed, her mind reeling. Adrian had been looking for her, had spent months searching, had wanted her back. And now he knew about Lily. 20 minutes later, Adrian returned. His face was transformed, still dangerous, still intense, but with something else underneath, something that looked like awe. She's perfect, he said quietly. She has your eyes. Emma's throat tightened. She has your nose. Adrian sat in the chair beside her bed, and for a long moment they just looked at each other. 9 months of separation, 9 months of secrets and pain and loneliness, hanging between them like a chasm. I'm not letting you go again, Adrian said finally. I don't care if you're scared. I don't care if you think we're from different worlds. That's my daughter in the NICU, and you're the mother of my child. We're connected now, Emma, forever. Adrian, I can't. Yes, you can. Adrian leaned forward, his eyes fierce. You've been doing everything alone for 9 months. Let me help. Let me be there for both of you. I don't want your money. I'm not offering money. I'm offering everything. A home, protection, security. His hand reached out and took hers. Love, if you'll let me. Emma's heart was breaking and mending at the same time. You don't love me. You barely know me. I know you're strong. I know you're brave. I know you carried our daughter alone rather than ask me for help, even when it nearly killed you. Adrian's grip tightened. I know that when I look at you, I see the only thing in my life that's ever felt real. That's enough. What if it's not? What if you wake up in 6 months and realize you made a mistake? Then we'll deal with it, together. Adrian stood and leaned over her, his face inches from hers. I'm not asking you to marry me, Emma. I'm not asking you to move into my penthouse or become someone you're not. I'm just asking you to let me be a father to Lily. Let me help. That's all. Emma wanted to say no, wanted to protect herself and her daughter from the inevitable heartbreak when Adrian's interest faded. But looking into his eyes, seeing the raw sincerity there, she couldn't find the strength to refuse. Okay, she whispered. You can help. Adrian's shoulders sagged with relief. Thank you. He kissed her then, soft and careful, mindful of her weakened state. Emma kissed him back, tasting salt from tears she didn't remember shedding. When Adrian pulled away, his hand cupped her face with infinite gentleness. Rest now. I'm going to go sit with Lily. When you're strong enough, we'll figure out the rest. Emma nodded, exhaustion pulling at her again. Adrian started to leave, then paused at the door. Emma, I meant what I said. I'm not letting you go again. Whatever it takes, however long it takes, I'm going to prove to you that this is real. Then he was gone, and Emma was left alone with her racing thoughts and the impossible hope blooming in her chest. Over the next few days, Adrian was a constant presence. He sat with Lily for hours in the NICU, his large hands impossibly gentle as he held their tiny daughter. He brought Emma food from actual restaurants instead of hospital cafeteria trays. He talked to her doctors, asked questions, made sure she was getting the best care. And he didn't push, didn't demand answers about the future, or pressure Emma to make decisions she wasn't ready for. He just existed in her space, solid and real, and utterly foreign to everything Emma had known. Patricia cornered Emma on the 3rd day, her expression caught between concern and curiosity. So that's the father? That's Adrian, Emma confirmed. He looks intense. That's one word for it. Patricia lowered her voice. Emma, do you know who that man is? What he does? Emma's stomach dropped. What do you mean? My husband's a detective. When I mentioned the name Adrian Varelli, he went pale, said that's not a man you want to cross. Patricia's eyes were worried. He's connected, Emma. Organized crime. The kind of people who make problems disappear. Emma had known, in a vague way, that Adrian's business was shady, but hearing it confirmed made her chest tighten with fear. He won't hurt me, or Lily. I hope you're right. Emma hoped she was right too. That night, after Adrian had left and the hospital had quieted, Emma lay in bed thinking about Patricia's warning. Adrian was dangerous. She'd known that from the moment she met him. But knowing it intellectually and understanding it viscerally were different things. What had she done, letting him into Lily's life? What kind of world was she exposing her daughter to? But when Emma closed her eyes, all she could see was the look on Adrian's face when he'd first held Lily. The wonder, the fierce protectiveness, the love. Whatever else Adrian Varelli was, he loved their daughter. Emma could see it in every careful touch, every soft word, every moment he spent watching Lily sleep like she was the most precious thing in the world, and maybe that was enough. A week after Lily's birth, Dr. Morrison cleared Emma for discharge. Adrian had been there every day, learning to change diapers, practicing with bottles, reading parenting books like they were strategic manuals. "Where are you planning to go?" Dr. Morrison asked, as she reviewed Emma's discharge papers. Emma's stomach clenched. She hadn't thought that far ahead. Her old apartment was gone. She'd broken the lease when she couldn't pay rent. All her belongings were in a storage unit she could no longer afford. She had nowhere to go. "She's coming home with me," Adrian said from his position by Lily's bassinet. Emma's head snapped up. "Adrian, we discussed this. You need help. I have room." His eyes met hers, challenging her to argue. "Unless you have somewhere else in mind." Emma didn't. She had exactly nowhere, and they both knew it. "Fine," she said, hating how defeated she sounded. "But just until I figure something else out." Adrian's smile was knowing. "Of course, just until you figure something else out." They left the hospital together, Emma in a wheelchair per protocol, Lily bundled in blankets Adrian had bought, expensive and soft. Marcus was waiting with the car, and he actually smiled when he saw the baby. "Congratulations, Mr. Varelli," Marcus said, his usually stoic face warming. "She's beautiful." "She is," Adrian agreed, settling Lily's car seat with the kind of focus he probably brought to his criminal enterprises. Emma watched him work, her heart doing complicated things in her chest. This was the man who'd searched for her for 9 months, who'd shown up at the hospital and stepped into fatherhood without hesitation, who looked at Lily like she'd hung the moon. Maybe Patricia was right to be worried. Maybe Emma was making a terrible mistake. But as the car pulled away from the hospital, carrying her toward an uncertain future in Adrian's world, Emma couldn't bring herself to regret it. For the first time in 9 months, she wasn't facing the unknown alone. Adrian's penthouse looked different in daylight with a newborn. The minimalist elegance that had seemed so sophisticated months ago now felt sterile, unwelcoming. Emma stood in the middle of the living room holding Lily, suddenly aware of all the sharp corners and hard surfaces that could hurt a child. "This isn't baby-proofed," she said. Adrian looked around as if seeing the space for the first time. "I'll have people come tomorrow, whatever you need." Adrian, I can't just redesign your apartment. It's not just my apartment anymore." He crossed to her, reaching out to stroke Lily's downy head with one finger. "It's hers too. And yours, if you'll stay." Emma wanted to argue, but exhaustion was pulling at her. The car ride had drained what little energy she had, and her incision ached. She needed to lie down, needed to feed Lily, needed to process the fact that she was standing in a penthouse with a man she barely knew and a daughter who depended on her for everything. "Where should I sleep?" Emma asked quietly. Something flickered in Adrian's eyes. "The master bedroom is prepared, unless you'd prefer the guest room." "Guest room," Emma said quickly. Too quickly, judging by Adrian's expression. "Of course." He gestured down the hall. "Second door on the left. I had a bassinet set up, and there's a changing table, diapers, everything the hospital said you'd need." Emma followed him down the hallway, Lily warm and solid in her arms. The guest room was larger than Emma's entire former apartment, with its own bathroom and a window overlooking the city. True to his word, Adrian had set up a complete nursery setup in one corner, bassinet, changing table, a dresser already stocked with tiny clothes. "When did you do all this?" Emma asked. "While you were in the hospital. I wanted you to have everything ready." Adrian shifted his weight, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. "Is it okay? If you need something else—" "It's perfect," Emma interrupted, her throat tight. "Thank you." Adrian nodded, then retreated to the doorway. "I'll let you rest. If you need anything, I'll be in my office. Just call." He left, closing the door softly behind him. Emma stood alone in the beautiful room with her daughter and finally let herself cry. Not from sadness, but from the overwhelming strangeness of it all. 24 hours ago, she'd been alone in a hospital bed, terrified and broke. Now she was in a penthouse with a man who'd bought her daughter an entire nursery. It felt like a dream or a trap. Emma wasn't sure which. Lily started to fuss, and Emma pushed the thoughts away. She settled into the plush armchair by the window and started to nurse, wincing as her daughter latched on. Everything hurt. Her incision, her breasts, her entire body. But Lily's small sounds of contentment made it bearable. This was real. Lily was real. Whatever happened with Adrian, Emma had her daughter. That was enough. Emma must have dozed off in the chair because she woke to darkness and Lily crying. Panic flooded her as she tried to orient herself. Where was she? What time was it? Why was everything so dark? Then memory returned. The penthouse. Adrian. She was safe. Emma stood carefully, her incision pulling, and lifted Lily from the bassinet. The baby's cries intensified, and Emma tried to soothe her while fumbling with her shirt to nurse again. But Lily wouldn't latch, just kept screaming, her little face red and scrunched. "Come on, baby," Emma pleaded. "Please, what do you need?" The bedroom door opened, and Adrian appeared in sweatpants and a t-shirt, his hair mussed from sleep. "What's wrong?" "I don't know. She won't eat, won't calm down." Emma's voice cracked. "I don't know what I'm doing." Adrian crossed to them and gently took Lily from Emma's arms. Emma wanted to protest, wanted to insist she could handle it, but relief warred with pride. Adrian held Lily against his shoulder, one large hand supporting her head, and started walking in slow circles around the room. "Shh, Lily. It's okay. Daddy's here." The word sent a shock through Emma's system. Daddy. Adrian was Lily's father, but hearing him claim the role so naturally made it real in a way nothing else had. And somehow, impossibly, Lily's cries started to settle. Her little body relaxed against Adrian's chest, her hiccuping sobs quieting to whimpers. "How did you do that?" Emma asked. Adrian smiled slightly. "I've been reading. Babies sometimes just need to be held differently. And she probably has gas. The hospital said that's common in the first few weeks." He demonstrated a burping technique he'd clearly practiced, gently patting Lily's back until she let out a small burp and settled completely. Emma watched, feeling simultaneously grateful and inadequate. She was Lily's mother. She should be the one who knew how to soothe her, not Adrian with his parenting books and natural competence. "You should sleep," Adrian said softly, still swaying with Lily. "I'll stay with her for a while." "I can't ask you to do that." "You're not asking. I'm offering." Adrian's eyes met hers in the dim light. "Emma, you just had major surgery. You're healing. Let me help." Emma wanted to refuse, but her body was screaming for rest. "Just for an hour? As long as you need." Emma climbed into the impossibly soft bed and was asleep before Adrian even left the room. She woke to morning sunlight and the smell of coffee. For a moment, Emma panicked. Where was Lily? Then heard soft voices from the living room. She got up slowly, her incision protesting, and found Adrian sitting on the couch with Lily cradled in one arm while he talked on his phone in what sounded like Italian. He looked up when Emma entered, his expression softening. "I'll call you back," he said into the phone, then set it aside. "Good morning. How do you feel?" "Sore. Confused." Emma moved to the couch. "How long was I asleep?" 6 hours. Lily ate twice. I used the bottles you pumped at the hospital." Adrian handed their daughter over, and Emma took her eagerly, needing the reassurance of Lily's weight in her arms. "There's breakfast in the kitchen, and coffee." Emma looked at this man who'd let her sleep for 6 hours while he cared for their newborn daughter, and something in her chest cracked open. "Thank you." You don't have to thank me for taking care of my own child, Emma. Still, I'm not used to having help. Adrian's jaw tightened. You shouldn't have had to do any of this alone. If I'd known— You didn't know because I didn't tell you, Emma interrupted. That's on me. Why didn't you? The question was soft but intense. Why suffer through pregnancy and almost die in childbirth rather than contact me? Emma looked down at Lily, gathering her thoughts. Because I was scared. Because I thought you didn't want me. Because accepting help from you felt like admitting I couldn't survive on my own, and survival is all I've ever been good at. You're good at a lot more than survival. Adrian moved closer. You're an incredible mother already. Lily's lucky to have you. Emma's eyes burned with tears. I don't feel incredible. I feel terrified and completely out of my depth. That's called being a parent. Adrian's hand covered hers where it rested on Lily's back. We'll figure it out together. The word together hung between them, heavy with promise and uncertainty. Emma wanted to believe in it, wanted to trust that Adrian meant what he said. But she'd learned young that people who promised forever usually meant until something better comes along. Over the next few days, they fell into a routine. Adrian worked from home, spending hours on phone calls in languages Emma didn't understand, conducting business she was probably better off not knowing about. But between calls, he was there, changing diapers, walking Lily when she fussed, bringing Emma food and water, and reminding her to take her pain medication. It was surreal. Emma kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for Adrian to get tired of playing house and send them away. But it didn't happen. If anything, he became more involved, more present, more determined to prove he was serious about being a father. On the 5th day, there was a knock at the penthouse door. Emma tensed. She still wasn't used to the security, the cameras, the way Marcus appeared silently whenever they needed to go anywhere. Adrian answered it and returned with a woman in her 50s, professionally dressed, carrying a briefcase. Emma, this is Margaret Chen. She's a family lawyer. Emma's heart sank. This was it. Adrian was going to take Lily away, use his money and power to prove Emma was an unfit mother. I'm not giving you custody, Emma said, pulling Lily closer. Margaret's eyes widened. Ms. Carter, that's not why I'm here. Mr. Varelli asked me to help with some paperwork to make your life easier. What kind of paperwork? Adrian sat beside Emma on the couch. Your medical debt, the hospital bills from Lily's birth, the collections agencies that have been calling you. He pulled out a folder from the briefcase Margaret had set on the coffee table. I'm going to pay all of it. Margaret is here to make sure it's done properly, that there are no tax implications for you. Emma felt like she'd been punched. No, absolutely not. Emma, I said no. Emma stood, still clutching Lily. I told you I don't want your money. I'll handle my own debts. With what? Adrian's voice was calm, reasonable, which somehow made it worse. You can't work right now. You're healing. By the time you can go back, the collections agencies will have destroyed your credit, garnished any wages you earn. You'll spend years digging yourself out. That's my problem. It's our problem. Adrian stood too, his eyes intense. You're the mother of my child, Emma. Your problems are my problems now. I'm not a charity case. I never said you were. Adrian's voice hardened slightly. But you're also not going to destroy yourself out of stubborn pride when I can help, when I want to help. Emma looked at Margaret, who was watching the exchange with professional detachment. How much debt are we talking about? Including your mother's medical bills, the hospital bills from Lily's birth, and the collections accounts. Approximately $42,000. The number hit Emma like a physical blow. $42,000. Years of her life, represented in a single devastating figure. I can't let you pay that, Emma whispered. Why not? Adrian challenged. I spend more than that on a car. It's nothing to me, Emma, but it's everything to you. Exactly. It's everything to me. It's my responsibility. If you pay it, then what? I owe you? I'm beholden to you? Adrian's expression shifted to something almost hurt. Is that what you think? That I'm trying to trap you? I don't know what to think. Emma's voice broke. This is all too much, too fast. A month ago, I was alone and pregnant and terrified. Now I'm living in your penthouse, you're paying my bills, and I don't know what any of it means. It means I care about you. Adrian said quietly. It means I want you and Lily to be safe and healthy and not crushed under the weight of debt you should never have had to carry alone. Emma sank back onto the couch, exhaustion overwhelming her. Lily started to fuss, sensing her mother's distress. Margaret cleared her throat gently. Perhaps I should give you two some time to discuss this. Mr. Varelli, I'll leave the paperwork. You can call me when you've made a decision. After Margaret left, silence filled the penthouse. Emma rocked Lily mechanically, her mind spinning. Adrian moved to the windows, his back to her, shoulders tense. I'm trying to do the right thing, he said finally, but you keep pushing me away. Because I'm scared, Emma admitted. Because every time someone has helped me, they've wanted something in return. Because I don't know how to accept this without losing myself. Adrian turned. What do you think I want, Emma? What terrible price do you think I'm going to demand? I don't know. That's what scares me. Adrian crossed back to her, kneeling in front of the couch so they were eye level. I want you to let me be a father to Lily. I want you to heal without worrying about money. He stopped, something raw crossing his face. I want you to give me a chance to be the man you deserve. That's all. Emma's eyes filled with tears. What if you can't be? What if your world is too dark, too dangerous? What if letting you in destroys us? Then we'll deal with it together. Adrian's hand cupped her face. But you have to let me in first. Emma closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on her. Accept Adrian's help and risk losing her independence, her identity as someone who survived alone. Or refuse and condemn herself and Lily to years of struggling poverty. When she opened her eyes, Adrian was still there, waiting, patient, hopeful. Okay, Emma whispered, pay the debt. But I need you to promise me something. Anything. Never let me forget that I can survive without you, even if I choose not to. Adrian's smile was sad and understanding. I promise. The debt disappeared within a week. Emma waited for the relief, but it never quite came. Instead, she felt untethered, like she'd lost the thing that defined her, the struggle, the fight to survive. Without debt crushing her, without the daily grind of bare survival, who was she? Adrian seemed to sense her discomfort. It's strange, isn't it? When the weight you've carried for so long suddenly lifts. They were sitting together on the couch, Lily asleep between them. It was 2 a.m, and neither could sleep. I don't know who I am without it, Emma confessed. Fighting, struggling, that's been my whole life. Now you get to figure out who you are without it. Adrian's fingers traced patterns on Lily's tiny hand. That's terrifying, but also a gift. What if I don't like who I am? Then you become someone you do like. You get that choice now, Emma. That's what freedom means. Emma looked at him, this complicated man with his dangerous business and surprising gentleness. Who are you without your work, Adrian? Without the power and the darkness? His jaw tightened. I don't know. I've never tried to be anything else. Maybe we can figure it out together. Adrian's eyes met hers, and something passed between them. Understanding, connection, the fragile beginning of trust. He leaned in slowly, giving Emma time to pull away, and kissed her softly. It was different from their desperate kisses months ago. This was tender, questioning, full of possibility rather than passion. Emma kissed him back, one hand resting on Lily's sleeping form between them. This was her family, strange and broken, and held together by hope. It wasn't what she'd imagined, but maybe it was what she needed. The tentative peace shattered 2 weeks later. Emma was in the nursery corner of the guest room, changing Lily's diaper, when she heard raised voices from the living room. Adrian's voice, sharp with anger. Another man's voice, older, speaking in rapid-fire Italian. Emma finished with Lily and cautiously opened the bedroom door. The living room had been transformed into what looked like a business meeting. 4 men in expensive suits, all of them radiating the kind of danger Emma had learned to recognize working night shifts in a city hospital. Adrian stood by the windows, his posture rigid, fury evident in every line of his body. The older man, silver-haired, impeccably dressed, was speaking intently, gesturing with cigar-stained fingers. This is unacceptable, Adrian. You've been distracted for weeks. The Santoro deal fell through because you weren't focused. Our partners are getting nervous. I had other priorities. Adrian said coldly. A woman and a bastard child are not priorities. The older man's voice dripped contempt. They're liabilities. Get rid of them. Everything happened very fast. Adrian moved with lethal grace, crossing the room and slamming the older man against the wall, forearm pressed to his throat. Say that again, Adrian said softly, dangerously. Call my daughter a bastard one more time, Vincent. See what happens. Emma gasped, and every head in the room turned toward her. She stood frozen in the bedroom doorway, Lily in her arms, suddenly aware that she'd just witnessed something she shouldn't have. Adrian's expression shifted from rage to alarm. He released Vincent and moved toward Emma. Go back in the bedroom. Who are these people? Emma's voice was shaking. Business associates. This doesn't concern you. Like hell it doesn't. Emma's fear was transforming into anger. That man just called our daughter a bastard and told you to get rid of us. That concerns me plenty. Vincent straightened his jacket, his cold eyes assessing Emma like she was an insect. So this is the little nurse who's made you soft. How charming. Vincent, Adrian's voice was lethal. Leave. Now. Before I forget we're family. Family. The word sent ice through Emma's veins. This man was Adrian's family. Part of whatever criminal empire Adrian ran. And he saw Emma and Lily as problems to be eliminated. The men filed out, Vincent last. He paused at the door, looking at Adrian with something like pity. She's made you weak. That will get you killed. After they left, silence filled the penthouse. Adrian stood with his back to Emma, his hands clenched into fists. Adrian, Emma said quietly, what was that? Something you should never have seen. Too late. Emma moved into the living room, still holding Lily. Who was that man? My uncle, Vincent Varelli. Adrian turned, and his face was a careful blank. The man who raised me. The head of the organization I work for. The organization? Emma's laugh was bitter. You mean the Mafia? Yes. At least he didn't lie about it. Emma sat down heavily, her legs suddenly weak. And he wants me gone. What Vincent wants is irrelevant. He's your boss. He's my uncle. There's a difference. Adrian knelt in front of her, his eyes intense. Emma, listen to me. I won't let anyone hurt you or Lily. Ever. Vincent may run the organization, but I have power too, and I'll use all of it to protect you. This is exactly what I was afraid of, Emma whispered. Your world is dangerous, dark. I can't raise Lily in this. Then we'll change it. Adrian's hands gripped hers. I've been thinking about this for weeks. There are ways out. Legitimate businesses I can transition to. It won't be immediate, but I can do it. You'd leave the Mafia? For us? For Lily? For you? For the chance to be someone better than what I was raised to be. Adrian's voice was raw with emotion. Yes, Emma. I'd leave it all behind. Emma wanted to believe him, but she'd seen the violence in his eyes when he'd slammed Vincent against the wall, the casual way he'd threatened his own uncle. This was who Adrian was, dangerous, powerful, capable of terrible things. Could love really change that? Lily started to cry, and Emma automatically began to rock her. Adrian watched them, something desperate in his expression. Please, he said quietly, don't run, not again. Give me a chance to prove I can keep you safe. Emma looked at her daughter, thought about the life ahead of them. She could leave, take Lily, and disappear into the city, try to survive alone again. But Vincent knew about them now. If the Mafia saw them as a threat to Adrian's focus, would they let them simply walk away? And deeper than the fear, deeper than the logical reasons to run, was the traitorous part of Emma's heart that didn't want to leave. That had started to imagine a future with Adrian, despite all the reasons it was impossible. I need time, Emma said, to think, to process this. How much time? I don't know. She met his eyes. But I'm not running tonight. That's the best I can give you. Adrian nodded, relief evident in his expression. That's enough. But Emma wasn't sure it was. As she carried Lily back to the bedroom and locked the door behind her, she couldn't shake the image of Vincent's cold eyes or the casual way he'd suggested eliminating her and Lily. This was Adrian's world, A world of violence and danger and men who saw human life as collateral in their games of power. Could she really raise her daughter here? Could she really trust Adrian to choose them over everything he'd ever known? Emma looked down at Lily, sleeping peacefully in her arms, blissfully unaware of the darkness surrounding her. "What do we do, baby girl?" Emma whispered. "What do we do?" Lily didn't answer, but as Emma held her daughter close, feeling the steady beat of her tiny heart, she realized something. She'd survived poverty and debt and almost dying in childbirth. She'd survived her mother's death and years of loneliness and the crushing weight of existing at the margins. Maybe she could survive this too. Maybe she was stronger than she'd ever given herself credit for. And maybe, just maybe, Adrian was worth the risk. Emma didn't sleep that night. She lay in the guest room bed, Lily in the bassinet beside her, listening to the sounds of the penthouse, Adrian's footsteps pacing in his office, the low murmur of phone calls in Italian, the city humming far below, oblivious to the small drama playing out in this tower of glass and steel. By dawn, Emma had made her decision. She found Adrian in the kitchen, dark circles under his eyes, staring at a cup of coffee he hadn't touched. He looked up when she entered, hope and fear warring on his face. "I'm not running," Emma said without preamble. "But I need the truth. All of it. What you do, how dangerous it really is, what staying here means for Lily." Adrian set down his cup carefully. "Are you sure you want to know?" "I can't make an informed decision if I'm kept in the dark." Adrian was quiet for a long moment, then nodded. "Sit down. This will take a while." Over the next hour, Adrian laid out his life in stark, unflinching detail. His parents' death when he was 8. Vincent taking him in, not out of love, but because Adrian was blood and blood was useful. Growing up in an organization built on import-export businesses that were fronts for money laundering, smuggling, extortion. Learning at 13 how to read ledgers that tracked illegal operations. At 16, witnessing his first act of violence. At 20, becoming Vincent's right hand and heir apparent. "I've hurt people," Adrian said, his voice flat. "I've made decisions that destroyed lives. I've done things I can never take back or make right." He looked at Emma, and the pain in his eyes was real. "I'm not a good man, Emma. I've never pretended to be." "But you want to be better," Emma said quietly. "For Lily. For both of you." Adrian's hands clenched on the table. "I meant what I said yesterday. I can get out. Vincent won't like it, but I have enough leverage, enough of my own operations, that I can break away. It'll take time, maybe a year, maybe 2. But I can transition everything to legitimate businesses." "And Vincent will just let you go?" "Not easily, but I have information he can't afford to have exposed. Insurance, if you will." Adrian's smile was bitter. "I learned from the best how to protect myself." Emma processed this, fear and something like understanding mixing in her chest. "What about enemies? The people you've hurt. Won't they come after you when you're not protected by the organization anymore?" "I've been preparing for that possibility for months. Since the day I met you, actually." Adrian stood and crossed to the window. "I have money moved offshore. Safe houses. New identities if we need them. I can keep you and Lily safe, Emma. I swear it." "You've been planning to leave for months? Before you even knew about Lily?" Adrian turned back to her and his expression was raw. "You made me want to be someone different. Someone who didn't wake up every day wondering when the violence would catch up to him. Someone who could deserve—" He stopped, swallowed hard. "Someone who could deserve you." Emma's heart cracked open. She stood and crossed to him, Lily sleeping peacefully in her arms. "Adrian Varelli, you're an idiot." He blinked, surprised. "What?" "You don't have to deserve me. You just have to choose me. Choose us. Every day, over everything else. That's all I need." Adrian's hands came up to cradle Emma's face, his thumbs brushing away tears she hadn't realized were falling. "I choose you, both of you, over everything." He kissed her then, soft and reverent, like she was something precious. He was terrified of breaking. Emma kissed him back, Lily warm between them, and felt something settle in her chest. This wasn't going to be easy. There would be danger, complications, 1,000 reasons why this shouldn't work. But Emma had spent her whole life fighting impossible odds. At least now, she wouldn't be fighting alone. The next few weeks were a strange mixture of domestic normalcy and underlying tension. Adrian worked from home, taking calls behind closed doors, conducting business. Emma tried not to think too hard about. But between the calls and meetings, he was fully present, changing diapers with the same focus he probably brought to criminal enterprises, reading parenting books like they were tactical manuals, walking Lily for hours when she was fussy. Emma found herself relaxing despite the circumstances, found herself laughing at Adrian's commentary on reality TV shows they watched during late-night feedings, found herself looking forward to the moments when Adrian would sit beside her on the couch, his arm around her shoulders, watching Lily sleep like she was a miracle, because she was. Their daughter was the miracle that had brought them back together, that had made Adrian want to change, that had shown Emma she was capable of more than just survival. But the illusion of peace couldn't last forever. It shattered on a Tuesday afternoon when Emma heard the penthouse door slam open. She was in the guest room with Lily when Adrian burst in, his face pale, his eyes wild. "Pack a bag. Now! We need to leave." Emma's heart jumped into her throat. "What happened?" "Vincent found out I'm planning to leave. He's not taking it well." Adrian was already pulling a pre-packed duffel from the closet. "We have maybe 20 minutes before his men get here." Emma's hands were shaking as she gathered Lily's things, diapers, formula, clothes. "Where are we going?" "Safe house outside the city. I'll explain everything once we're there, but right now, we need to move." They made it to the elevator with 15 minutes to spare. Marcus was waiting with the car, his usually stoic face tight with concern. They pulled out of the building's garage just as two black SUVs pulled up to the front entrance. "That was too close," Marcus muttered. Emma clutched Lily to her chest, her heart pounding. This was real. The danger Adrian had promised to protect them from was real and immediate and terrifying. Adrian pulled out his phone and made a series of rapid calls in Italian. Emma couldn't understand most of it, but she caught Vincent's name, heard the cold fury in Adrian's voice. Whatever was happening, it was escalating fast. The safe house turned out to be a cabin 2 hours outside the city, nestled in woods that felt impossibly remote after weeks in the penthouse. Marcus stayed with them, positioning himself by the front window with a gun Emma tried not to look at. "How bad is this?" Emma asked once Lily was settled in the makeshift nursery Adrian had apparently prepared weeks ago. "Bad." Adrian paced the cabin's small living room like a caged animal. "Vincent wants to make an example of me. Show the organization what happens when someone tries to leave." "What does that mean?" Adrian stopped pacing and looked at her, something terrible in his eyes. "It means he'll try to hurt the things I care about most. You and Lily." Emma felt ice flood her veins. "So what do we do?" "I end this. Tonight." Adrian pulled out his phone. "I have enough information on Vincent's operations to bring down the entire organization. I hand it over to the FBI, Vincent goes to prison, and we're free." "You'd turn on your own family?" "He stopped being family the moment he threatened my daughter." Adrian's voice was granite hard. "I won't let him hurt you, Emma. Whatever it takes." Emma moved to him, placing her hand over his where it gripped the phone. "If you do this, there's no going back. You'll be a traitor to everyone you've ever known." "I know. They'll come after you, after us." "I know that too." Adrian's other hand came up to cup her face. "But the alternative is living in fear forever, looking over our shoulders, waiting for Vincent to make his move. This way we have a chance at a real life, a safe life." Emma looked into his eyes and saw the truth there. Adrian was willing to burn down his entire world for them. The realization was terrifying and humbling all at once. "Do it," Emma whispered. Adrian made the call. The next hours were a blur of FBI agents arriving at the cabin, Adrian handing over flash drives and documents, Emma sitting with Lily and trying to process the fact that her daughter's father was dismantling a criminal empire. Agents asked Emma questions she barely knew how to answer. How long had she known Adrian? What did she know about his business? Had she witnessed any criminal activity? Emma told them the truth, that she'd known Adrian for less than a year, that she'd learned about his real work only weeks ago, that she'd seen nothing except men in expensive suits having conversations she didn't understand. They seemed to believe her. Or at least, they seemed to accept that she was a civilian caught up in circumstances beyond her control. By dawn, it was over. Vincent Varelli had been arrested along with a dozen other high-ranking members of the organization. The FBI had what they needed to dismantle operations that had been running for decades. And Adrian was free, if you could call being a federal witness in protective custody freedom. "What happens now?" Emma asked as the last of the agents left. Adrian looked exhausted, years older than he had the day before. "Witness protection, if we want it. New identities, relocation, the whole package." "Do we want it?" "I don't know." Adrian sank onto the couch beside her, Lily asleep between them. "Part of me wants to disappear completely, start over somewhere Vincent's associates can never find us. But the other part," he gestured helplessly, "running forever isn't much of a life either." Emma thought about it, weighing their options. A new life somewhere far away, always looking over their shoulders. Or staying and fighting, building something real where they were. "I'm tired of running," Emma said finally. "I spent my whole life trying to escape poverty, debt, my past. I don't want that for Lily. I don't want her growing up thinking the only option is to run." Adrian looked at her with something like awe. "You want to stay?" "I want to build something, here, where we are." Emma took his hand. "You said you could make your businesses legitimate. So do it. Really do it. Not as an escape plan, but as a real future. It won't be easy. There will be people who remember what I was, who I worked for. When has anything about us been easy?" Emma smiled slightly. "We're good at impossible, Adrian. Let's try it together." Adrian pulled her close, careful of Lily between them, and kissed her forehead. "Together. I like the sound of that." The transition was harder than either of them anticipated. Adrian spent months working with the FBI, testifying in trials, watching as the organization he'd grown up in crumbled. Vincent was sentenced to life in prison. Others took plea deals or fled the country. The empire Adrian's uncle had built was systematically destroyed. And through it all, Emma and Lily were there. Emma moved out of the guest room and into Adrian's bedroom, no longer pretending this was temporary. She watched Adrian transform from a criminal enforcer into something resembling a legitimate businessman, converting import operations into legal enterprises, laundering his past into a cleaner future. It wasn't perfect. There were nights when Adrian woke from nightmares, haunted by the things he'd done. Days when former associates would make veiled threats that sent them into lockdown mode. Moments when Emma questioned whether they could ever truly escape the shadows. But there were also moments of profound beauty. Lily's first smile, directed at her father as he made ridiculous faces at her. The first time Adrian said, "I love you" to Emma, his voice breaking with emotion. Moving into a house instead of a fortress, one with a yard where Lily could play, where neighbors existed and life felt almost normal. 6 months after Vincent's arrest, Adrian found Emma in the nursery, rocking Lily to sleep. He knelt beside the chair, pulling a small box from his pocket. "Emma Carter, I know this isn't conventional. I know we did everything backwards. Had a baby before we even knew each other, built a life out of chaos and fear and impossible circumstances." He opened the box, revealing a simple diamond ring. "But I love you. I love who I am when I'm with you. I love the family we've built, and I want to spend the rest of my life proving I can be the man you and Lily deserve." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Adrian, I'm not asking you to say yes right now. I know I have a lot to prove still. I just wanted you to know that this is real for me. You're real for me. Forever real." Emma set Lily in her crib, then turned back to Adrian and pulled him to his feet. "You don't have anything to prove. You've already shown me who you are. A man who chose love over power, family over everything he'd ever known, a better future over an easier past." She held out her hand. "Yes, Adrian. Yes to all of it." Adrian slipped the ring on her finger with shaking hands, then kissed her like she was air and he'd been drowning. Emma kissed him back, pouring all her love and hope and stubborn faith into it. They were married 3 months later in a small ceremony with just a handful of people. Marcus, Patricia from the hospital, Margaret the lawyer, a few of Adrian's former associates who'd also chosen to go legitimate. Lily was there in a tiny white dress, sleeping through most of the ceremony in Patricia's arms. It wasn't the fairy tale wedding Emma had dreamed of as a girl. There was no fancy venue, no hundreds of guests, no elaborate reception, but standing in front of the judge, holding Adrian's hands while Lily slept peacefully nearby. Emma felt something she'd never felt before. Complete. Not because Adrian completed her, Emma had learned she was whole on her own, but because choosing to build a life with him, choosing to be a family felt like finally coming home after years of wandering. The next 2 years brought challenges and triumphs in equal measure. Adrian's transition to legitimate business wasn't seamless. There were competitors who tried to take advantage, former associates who demanded favors, moments when the easy violence of his past life would have solved problems that now required patience and legal maneuvering. But Adrian persevered. He built a shipping company, a real estate firm, investments in technology startups, made money honestly for the first time in his life, learned to measure success by his daughter's laughter instead of power acquired. Emma went back to school, finishing the nursing degree she'd abandoned years ago. It was hard juggling classes with a toddler and a husband who still worked too many hours, but Patricia helped, and Marcus, who'd become something like family, stepped in as the world's most overqualified babysitter. Lily grew from a tiny newborn into a bright, fearless toddler who had her father wrapped around her finger. She had Emma's eyes and Adrian's stubborn determination, and she approached the world with the kind of confidence Emma had never possessed at any age. On Lily's second birthday, Emma stood in the backyard of their house, watching Adrian chase their daughter around while she shrieked with laughter. The past felt very far away, the hospital night shifts, the crushing poverty, the loneliness that had defined Emma's life for so long. She'd come so far from the invisible girl scrubbing blood off hospital floors, further than she'd ever imagined possible. Patricia appeared beside her, holding a glass of lemonade. "You did good, Emma." "We did good," Emma corrected, watching Adrian scoop Lily into his arms and spin her around. "All of us." "Think you'll have more?" Patricia nodded toward Adrian and Lily. Emma smiled. "Maybe, someday, when life is a little less chaotic." Patricia laughed. "Honey, life is always chaotic. That's what makes it worth living." As if to prove her point, Lily spotted Emma and demanded to be put down, running toward her mother with arms outstretched. Emma caught her daughter and lifted her up, breathing in the scent of baby shampoo and chocolate cake. "Mama, look!" Lily pointed at the sky where the sun was beginning to set, painting everything gold and orange. "I see it, baby. It's beautiful." Adrian joined them, wrapping his arms around both Emma and Lily. "My girls, my whole world right here." Emma leaned into him, feeling the solid warmth of his chest against her back, Lily's small body cradled between them. This was her family. Unconventional, forged in chaos, held together by love that had survived impossible odds. "I love you," Emma said, not sure if she was saying it to Adrian or Lily or both. "Love you too, Mama," Lily chirped. "And I love both of you more than anything in this world or the next," Adrian murmured against Emma's hair. Later that night, after the guests had gone home and Lily was asleep in her room, Emma found Adrian in his office. He was looking at something on his computer, his expression serious. "What is it?" Emma asked. Adrian turned the screen toward her. It showed plans for a foundation, the Lily Carter Varelli Foundation, dedicated to helping single mothers afford medical care and childcare. "I've been thinking," Adrian said, "about everything you went through alone, about how many women are struggling the same way, drowning in debt and exhaustion with no help." He stood and pulled Emma close. "We have resources now. Money that came from dark places, but could do good things. I want to use it to help people like you. Women who need someone to see them, to offer a hand up instead of charity." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Adrian, that's incredible." "It was your strength that saved me, Emma. Your refusal to give up even when everything was against you. I want to give other women the chance to find that strength without having to nearly die first." Emma kissed him, pouring all her love and gratitude into it. This man who'd been raised to take and destroy was choosing to give and build. The transformation wasn't complete, probably never would be, but the effort was real. The change was real. And that was enough. Months later, the foundation launched. Emma cut the ribbon at the opening ceremony, Adrian beside her, Lily in his arms. Cameras flashed. Reporters asked questions about Adrian's past and his redemption story. Some of the coverage was skeptical, questioning whether a former criminal could really change. But Emma didn't care about the skeptics. She cared about the single mother who came to the foundation's first clinic, exhausted and desperate and drowning in medical debt, and left with help, hope, and the knowledge that someone saw her. Emma understood that woman because she'd been that woman, and now she got to be the person who offered the hand up she'd once needed. One evening, as they were putting Lily to bed, their daughter looked up at Adrian with serious eyes. "Daddy, Mama said you used to be a bad man." Emma's heart stopped. She'd tried to explain Adrian's past in age-appropriate terms, but apparently Lily had understood more than Emma realized. Adrian sat on the edge of Lily's bed, his expression thoughtful. "I made some very bad choices, Lily. Hurt people. Did things I'm not proud of. But you're good now?" "I'm trying to be. Every day I try to be better than I was yesterday." Lily considered this with the gravity only a toddler could muster. "Mama says trying is what matters." Adrian's eyes met Emma's over their daughter's head, and the love there nearly stopped Emma's heart. "Mama's right. Trying is what matters." He tucked Lily in, kissed her forehead, and sang her the Italian lullaby he'd learned from his mother before she died. Emma watched from the doorway, her hand resting on her slightly rounded belly, where their second child was just beginning to grow. They hadn't planned another baby so soon. But life had taught Emma that the best things often came unplanned. Midnight collisions on rainy streets, one impossible night that changed everything, daughters who arrived early and terrified their parents into becoming better people. When Lily was asleep, Adrian joined Emma in the hallway. His hand found her belly immediately, and his smile was incandescent. "Another miracle," he whispered. "Another chance to get it right," Emma agreed. They stood together in the quiet house, surrounded by the life they'd built from nothing. From fear and loneliness and impossible circumstances, they'd created something real, something good. Emma had started as the girl no one noticed, invisible, struggling, barely surviving, but she'd survived the darkness and found light on the other side. Found love in the last place she'd expected. Found family in chaos. Found herself in the process of saving someone else. And Adrian, raised in violence, molded by darkness, convinced he was irredeemable, had found that love could transform even the hardest heart, that choosing to be better was possible, even when everything in his past said otherwise. Their story wasn't a fairy tale. It was messier, more complicated, full of real struggles and imperfect solutions. But it was theirs. And as Emma stood in Adrian's arms, feeling their daughter sleep peacefully down the hall, and their second child growing inside her, she realized something profound. She was no longer invisible. She was seen, known, loved completely. Not despite her struggles, but because of them. Not in spite of her past, but including it. From a life of exhaustion and invisibility to becoming the heart of a family, powerful enough to rewrite fate. Emma Carter Varelli had come impossibly far, and she was just getting started. In the end, Emma learned that survival wasn't about fighting alone. It was about finding people worth fighting beside, about choosing love even when fear seemed safer, about believing that broken people could heal each other, that dark pasts could lead to bright futures, that sometimes the collision you never saw coming could save your life. She'd collided with Adrian on a rain-soaked street and shattered the invisible walls around her life. He'd seen her when no one else did. And in seeing her, he'd saved himself. Together they'd built something neither could have created alone. A family forged in fire, tempered by love, strong enough to weather any storm. And as Lily took her first steps into her father's arms months later, Emma watched with tears streaming down her face, knowing that everything had changed. She was no longer the girl no one noticed. She was a mother, a wife, a woman who'd survived impossible odds and come out stronger. She was Emma Varelli, and she was finally, beautifully, completely home.